Joining us now to discuss it all, we have Andrew Gillum, former mayor of Tallahassee, Florida, and CNN political commentator. Also, April Ryan, White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks and CNN political analyst. Angela Rye, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Bakari Sellers, former Democratic South Carolina House member. He has endorsed Senator Kamala Harris. Great to have all of you. Okay, Mayor, you know your way around a debate stage. What are you watching for tonight?
Well, one, I wish debates won elections, but I do think, tonight, I think you're not going to see the kind of divisive fireworks that you may have anticipated from the last Democratic debate on day two. Senator Harris and Bernie Sanders, rather, and Senator Warren are likely not to, in my opinion, take each other on in a confrontational way. If there are differences, I think the viewers will be really hard-stretched to find the nuance in between it.
But is that just their style? I mean, I keep hearing they're friends. How much stock are we putting in the fact that they're friends?
Well, first of all, friends or not, you ought to be running to win. And my guess is that they're going to run to distinguish themselves from each other, run to show where there may be some differences, where if you're Senator Sanders, you want to shore up your base and say, there is no alternative to the revolutionary vision that I'm offering. And for Senator Warren, I think she's got to get out there and say, without apology, where she is on the public policy positions of the day, but also not yield any ground on the progressive flank to Senator Sanders. And I think that's probably the matchup that will be most interesting, that dance that they'll have to do tonight.
As you move out from the center, from center of the stage, not center of the political spectrum, they're literally standing in the center of the stage, you have Mayor Pete Buttigieg and former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, April.
Yeah.
What do you think they will be trying to do?
They're going to try to knock down Senator Sanders and Senator Warren. They have to come out stronger than they have. Beto O'Rourke may have the money, but he does not have the numbers as of yet. This is the time to show up and show out. Beto O'Rourke has got to show that he's strong. You know, I was here with Beto O'Rourke and Pete Buttigieg and all the top tier candidates just last week talking about urban issues at the NAACP Presidential Forum. And they have to come out and stand out. They have to fight Elizabeth Warren. They have to fight against Bernie Sanders. End of story. They have got to show that I am worthy. I'm going to make that next round. And this is do or die tonight.
Angela, what are you watching for?
Well, you know, in the infamous words of a famous philosopher, Snoop Dogg, there's a song called What's My Name off his first album. And I think there are so many other folks on the fringe who many of us don't know what they stand for, who they are. We just know who are the rest of the people on the stage. And so tonight is really that opportunity for them to demonstrate who they are. Not only the fact that they can take on the other Democrats in the primary strongly, but they can also stand up against the president, who regularly uses a platform on Twitter and the bully pulpit from the White House to fight against what we all know is right. And so they have that great opportunity tonight and tomorrow.
Should they drop it like it's hot?
They should not.
Wait a minute.
It's still New Day, Allison. Yes. It's not prime time, Allison. We went too far.
Look, PJ Collier said, all I do is win, win, win.
I just had one famous one. And y'all
Throw your hands up, and they stay there. And they stay there.
All right, Bakari Sellers, you have supported Senator Kamala Harris. She came out with her Medicare for All plan yesterday. The timing of it is interesting because she did it right before these debates. The positioning is interesting. It does not do away with private insurance, exactly. And it positions itself slightly to the right of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and maybe slightly to the left of Joe Biden. Do you anticipate that Warren and Sanders will go after that today?
I do. I think that Warren and Sanders will be distinguishing themselves with not only Beto and Pete on the stage tonight, but also Harris and Biden tomorrow night. I don't anticipate any fireworks between Warren and Sanders. I mean, I just don't think that they will. But just to talk about tonight momentarily, I do think that there are going to be more fireworks or attempted fireworks than people can imagine. I think that some of those individuals on the stage, like a Steve Bullock, are going to attack the progressive movement within our party and show that they are the moderate choice or can win or can find the center lane. And also the other thing is, while we're having these conversations about race and what the president is doing every day, it's going to be very interesting to see this stage of individuals that lacks diversity.
It's a whiter group tonight.
It's not just about
all white
Yes,
girls.
all white.
Yeah.
Well, that's whiter. That's whiter.
But it's going to be interesting to see because we know that Bernie Sanders, we know that Elizabeth Warren, we know that Pete and Beto have the ability to tackle these issues of race. I'm very interested to see what the other 6 do because I think it's indicative of our party that only really about 30 or 40% of the white voters actually know how to tackle or frame these issues of race. So I'm looking to see what the others do and those who claim that moderate mantle, because we're all going to have to be on the same page.
But it's
You know,
not
really
just about-
quick on that. Sorry, really quick. Beto, what's interesting about that is Beto's guests tonight are the football players who kneeled during the national
In
anthem,
Lansing.
modeling after Colin Kaepernick. So he, I think, recognizes that and is trying to make up for that shortcoming.
And going to that, it's not just about being white, it's about the message. And this is not necessarily politics, this is about the heart. After
Yeah.
you have laws, after you legislate, what's left? And now the heart issue, again, going back to the NAACP last week, I asked a couple of the candidates, look, if you happened to be the mayor of New York City and de Blasio will be there tonight, what would you have done? Would you have charged Officer Pantaleo?
Yes.
For the
Yes.
death of Eric Garner? And one candidate, Amy Klobuchar, the crowd got upset with her at the NAACP. She said, well, I would have left that to the federal government. And people are like, wait a minute.
Right now?
Yeah, that's what she said. She said that last week. And that was a telling statement. So it's
Wow.
not about race. It's about a heart issue. It's about what is fair, what is right, what is equitable in the Trump era.
I would also, though, caution the candidates tonight on the issue of race to come also authentically and not
Yes.
to look as if you're pandering one way or another. Sometimes when you're in those spaces, particularly what we'll see tonight, which will be an all-white stage, there may be some inclination to want to kind of out-black, the next person that's on stage. And
Out-black.
you got to be careful how that lands.
That's true.
With frankly black viewers, but also everyday Americans.
Yeah.
Is it believable? Is it grounded in something that is a much more deeper racial analysis rather than the quick talking points that are throwaways that people won't believe?
It's also how they say it. I'm sorry, Allison. One
Oh,
last
go.
thing.
I'm interested.
It's also how they say it. To Andrew's point, during the Essence Festival, Pete Buttigieg had an opportunity to present to the crowd, and I was about to go on stage, and I'm like, okay, he sounds real Barack Obama-esque right
He
now, and I'm
did.
like, bro, I just heard you talking yesterday. Like you're a completely
Yeah,
different
yeah.
person right now.
And
Well-
Kamala Harris last week said something, and you remember that. I asked, I couldn't hear one of her statements, and she said, "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud." I said, "Okay." And the crowd, they felt it, and you have to be very careful
Very.
how you come at a time of dis-ease in this
Yeah.
nation over race
But-
with black people, brown people, and Native Americans.
But you also, because I keep looking down, so pardon my eyes, because I have to remember who's on the stage and look to the far left and look at their name. I mean, we do this for a living, and I'm still looking under names to make sure that I'm calling out this
Right,
individual
yeah,
correctly.
yeah.
I mean, Jay Inslee, for example, I just did that because you were here. Angela.
Yeah.
Jay Inslee, and all of these individuals, they have to tell their story.
Yeah.
They have to.
You cannot go up there and blend in.
Yeah.
Somebody has to stand out. And listen, we're going to laugh and say this. I do believe that someone who people will be watching because she's become like a cult figure and she's kind of taken over online is Marianne Williamson.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Because if that girlfriend,
Yeah.
you are so
That's
on. Like
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
that you will.
And it doesn't
Girlfriend, that
come
is
off
so
as-
90s.
It doesn't come off as pandering though when I hear her. I actually think that
Yeah.
that's kind of grounded in what
No,
it is that
that's her.
she's saying, and it's coming through after the first debate. Much of the online chatter was like, "Who is this Marianne
She was
Williamson?
the most
Where did
Googled
she-"
person. I'm glad
That's
you
right.
brought her up because there's
That's
a
right.
lot of interest in her.
There is interest.
And so just because she's not a traditional, taking
our
the traditional
psychic friend into
presidential
politics
track,
now.
people are interested in
I have
what
to-
she has to say.
All the more to the point that you don't necessarily have to be a person of color to resonate with people
That's
of color.
true.
That's true.
right.
But
Right?
Pete Buttigieg has to resonate tonight in the
Well-
D with everything going on in South Bend. People are listening to what he has to say about urban America. You cannot be in Detroit and not deal with issues of urban America, particularly when you have Flint not far from
Right.
here.
Yeah.
You have the tariff issue. You have all of these people being laid off in this community from the big 3 automakers here in Detroit. There are issues, and I'm going to tell you something. I hope our colleagues hit it and don't quit it
They
when it
will.
comes to urban America.
Our colleagues do a terrific job.
Yes,
Don
they
Lennon,
do.
Jay
Yes,
Tapper,
they do.
and Dan
Yes,
Bash.
they
Just
do.
one more point I want to make from another one of my colleagues, Allison Camerata, terrific voter panel there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
so interesting at the end when you asked for a show of hands for who feels
Confident.
confident
The
the
Democrat
Democrats
will
will win. Just 1 of 6 voters raised their hands there, which gets to the issue. I think Democrats are terrified.
Yes.
Totally.
I think they are living in terror from what happened in 2016. You know, Mayor, it happened to you.
I did,
In
yeah.
Florida. People went in there thinking that something was going to happen, and it did not turn out that way. And this all has to do with the idea of electability.
It also has to do with the fact you're talking about terror from 2016. John, every day I wake up and I realize this is still very much a reality. I'm terrified. And so this isn't just about how the election was handled or won in 2016. It also has to do with the reality of what that election has meant for us policy-wise, what it's meant in terms of issues of race, and the fact that they've come to the surface in such an ugly way. This is the 400th year since the documented arrival of the first enslaved African, and for us to be talking about race in ways that are not healing is tremendously
And Trump
problematic.
is going to Jamestown today.
That's also indicative. That's insane.
That is
by the
very-
way.
I
But
know, wow, it is
that's
happening.
also indicative
heart
of who Democrats are.
Which is,
We are proverbial bedwetters, okay? And I don't expect Democrats, 6 of them, if you ask them who's going to win, I don't expect all 6 to raise their hand. We're just not like that. And so I think that is what you saw. You saw this fear. And the other thing about Democrats, which you kind of you're going to start to see candidates who want to win this race kind of attempt to bridge because you have to bridge the Warren Sanders wing, and you have to bring those moderates together. You know, Democrats, the age-old adage is actually so true because we want to fall in love. You know, Republicans just fall in line. You know, we want to make sure we want to have this emotional connection. We want a JFK. We want a Bill Clinton. We want a Barack Obama. You know, Republicans just want to win at all costs.
Well, and we also
Literally.
are, you know,
I
every
like
one,
that.
every
Andrew's
one of us
finishing
is
my
an
sentences now.
analyst.
I love it. I love it.
Well, at least,
Well, you know,
at least
y'all
we're
are
not
the
the
same
same person.
We've proven it.
That's where we're at. Opposite ends of the
I know. That's crazy.
But the point I wanted to make here is that, unfortunately, everybody in the Democratic Party has become its own analyst as it relates to the election. We're skipping the process, trying to get to November and game it out as who's the best to beat Trump. And I'm actually looking for the thermostat of this group of candidates and not just a thermometer. And I think generally people in this country are sick of the candidate who holds their finger up, see which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah.
In some cases, you have to set the agenda. You have to bring people to your side. You have to compel people with the belief that you've got an agenda that's going to move us forward. If you do it timidly, I think we run the risk of losing and yielding the stage of courage and innovation and going big and strong to Donald Trump.
I just
Sound
want to
ready,
bring this up.
Andrew?
I just want to bring up in the least surprising tragic news of the day, we found out that the shooter, the mass shooter at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, had some white supremacist postings on his social media. Shocker.
Man,
So what? But Bakari, what I keep hearing is people say, "Gee, I sure hope that the racist rhetoric that's being thrown around doesn't someday lead to violence." It's already happening.
I mean, while we are casting aspersions on Black and brown people throughout this country, using words like infested, talking about people coming over the border as if they're not seeking better help for their families and treating them as if they're some violent criminals, you don't hear people talk about white male domestic terror in this country. In South Carolina, we lived through Dylan Roof.
Yes.
that's where we met.
I know, and the images of Dylan Roof enveloped in the Confederate flag, that was, 4 years ago. That was 2015. And here we are today. And what has happened is, I remind people of Charlottesville all the time. The thing that was about Charlottesville that was so damning is that it wasn't that they were yelling these anti-Semitic, xenophobic tropes. It was so damning that they didn't wear hoods. We live in a country now where it's
tiki
acceptable.
torches.
It's acceptable to come out and display your racism. It's acceptable to display your bigotry and hate. And now you have young people. We live in a country right now where we have cultivated young people who are 19, 20, 21, who have more hate in their heart than Bull Connor, Lester Maddox, George Wallace, and who are not afraid to show it. And while we have those individuals like the Sheryl Sandbergs and the Mark Zuckerbergs who do nothing to kind of corral and build frameworks around their sites, you have individuals like Donald Trump who throw gasoline on it. And it is a very combustible mix because wayward white boys right now, right, are going on these deep, dark sites, understanding that it's acceptable from their president of the United States, and then families like those families in California are now having to wake up with heartache because somebody did not have the compassion in their heart to understand what it means to love.
And this is where the inspiration comes in. We were talking about inspiration versus aspirational versus tangible. At the end of the day, when you have issues of race, And former Governor Doug Wilder
Yes.
said this. He said, when you have issues of race on the table and this hatred, it stems to the fact of money. It stems to the fact that I feel like I'm not getting something that you're getting.
Right.
And there is a dynamic that has been unequal since blacks and browns have been in this nation. We are at the lower end, and when you try to make it equitable, there's a fight now. And I'm going to go back to Bill Clinton, 22 years ago when I first came to the White House. He had the foresight to understand that we were a nation that's browning. And he said, look, a lot of our older Americans, they're not going to get it. They were the ones marching with George Wallace. They were the ones, with the strange fruit hanging from the tree, the lynchings and things of that nature. But we were going to look to our young people. And he had the hope that the young people would get it and change. That was in the 90s. And now in 2019, our young people are shooting, are screaming, are shooting at the Emmett Till plaque and holding guns. Because why?
Well, the president has given license, but you know what else? Republicans have also given complicity. So
Yeah.
while the president
Amen.
speaks these,
Silence.
ridiculous, offensive things every single day, you still can't get reasonable, respectable Republicans to stand up and say this isn't who we are and that we disagree vehemently with where
right.
the president is.
Yeah.
Thank
All right,
We're
friends.
not equal on all sides.
We
No,
are
we're
not. Preach it.
We're not.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
being here
We
with
need
us.
to have this BT moment every single morning. When we do that.
Yes, bring it on. Yes.
All right, it is two big nights that